military history. Muhammadu Buhari himself is a part of a history of Nigeria's leadership. People who wish can go ahead and write books about him, because the life he lived in public service is an institution, a repository of knowledge, a repository of capacity building for anybody and anyone. Some of us were not even willing to meet with him, as the case may be, but what he stood for was that driving force to stay committed, even till today, in death.
All right. I remember, a book we used to write. I mean, we needed to read to pass WAEC, Incorruptible Judge. but that's by the way. But Dr. Kinshiju, you was talking about integrity and frugality. But when we look at all this procession, the ceremony, it's been celebrated and what it stood for and all that. So many politicians are there today, governors, ex-governors, former ministers, current ministers. What should they take away from this? Already drums are already being beaten concerning another round of elections. What will be your, summation? But let's take the ambience. I think we'll come back after that is done.
President left the residents of the guests that in the city, and particularly at the residence of the late former Nigerian leader, we are waiting for the other mourners here, the Daura helipad, where the funeral prayers would take. And many other residents who were previously prevented from gaining access from the main road, Kano, Daura, Kongolam Highway, are now moving into the place, including royal fathers. I can see the emir of Africa in Yobe State moving into the helipad. There are also former governors, especially former governor of Kaduna State and Sokoto State, Nasir El-Rufai, Aminu Tambol, as well as former ministers of the Buhari administration, including the former communication and digital economy, Isa Ali Fantami. We are also told in the early hours of the day the Emirates have agreed and recommended the chief imam of Yusuf to lead the funeral prayers for the late Nigerian leader, which is taking place at the late Nigerian leader, and is the chief Nigeria's president and commander, President Bola Tinubu, Vice President, and other Nigerian governors. As you may also recall, the President, the federal government, and many state governors have declared today as a public holiday as part of the 7-day national mourning. And we can also see flags flying at half-mast to honor the late Nigerian leader, a patriot who is also seen as somebody, a person of impeccable character and a symbol of honesty, as people fondly call him, Mai Gaskiya in Hausa, which means the honest one. That's why people of Daura said they could not have any other person as the former President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been frequenting the city whenever, even when he was in power, as the president between the year 2015 and 2023. He left office on May 29, 2023, after handing over to his successor, President Bola Tinubu. And for almost 2 years, he has been living here at his residence in Daura, visiting his farm, which is some few kilometers away from the residence along the Kongolam Road. Buhari, as you might have seen in so many reports played on NTA, and the discussions, was born here in the ancient town of Daura on December 17, 1942, and had his early life here. And of course, he was also the Nigeria's 7th and 15th Nigeria's leader as military head of state and civilian president who was elected into office for 2 consecutive terms. Throughout his life, Buhari maintained strong ties to his hometown, Daura, and as we can see, the residents of the city, young and old, are all here to mourn, to give final respect to the illustrious son of the city and a father who they see as a source of pride to the ancient emirate. As you might have seen, the remains is being driven to Daura from Katsina, which is about 72 kilometers away from this place. Is expected to be buried here at his residence, which is about 250 meters away from this place, inside his residence. And people of Daura, as they've been telling us in the course of discussions since yesterday, he's someone they will continue to miss, not only for maintaining strong ties with them over the years, but for being generous and for being humble, for being carrying them along in all his activities. He never looked down at any individual, no matter his status in life. This is part of the testimonies given by some residents of Daura about the life of the late leader, Muhammadu Buhari. So any moment the remains may arrive here. Daura is where he was born, as I was telling you. We had little interruption here. And he had his early life here. All his families, we could see them since yesterday morning, and they were, many of them, weeping, recalling and recounting the beautiful memories with the family member who they said they are and will continue to be proud of his life and contribution to the Nigerian people and the nation in itself. They told me that he takes care of most of the family members of the extended family. He fed many of them, took responsibility for their medical bills, school fees, and many other things, and contributed immensely through wise counsels and generous contributions to community development over the years. And they said he did more between May 29 after leaving office as president to March when he left for Daura, which they said he even left for Kaduna against his wish, because many Nigerians were asking him to return to Kaduna, maybe because of convenience in visiting him. They said when he left, before leaving, he helped a lot of people and the community projects and programs. He involved himself as a normal citizen or indigent of the community, not as a national leader, a president for that matter. So they are sure that the demise of the former president will be the greatest loss to the Daura Emirate and Katsina state at large, some calling it the loss of the century. So only time will tell the beautiful testimonies being given by the people of Daura, the way the residents of Daura have been looking and conducting themselves, the way they abandon their daily activities, including source of their livelihoods, is really telling how dear he was and he is to his people. So many dignitaries are still coming into the Daura helipad here in the GRA of the Daura town, which is very close to the residence of the late former Nigeria leader, and the funeral prayers will be conducted here and to be led by the Chief Imam of Daura, Sheikh Sofwan Yusuf, on the recommendation of the Daura Emirate and family members. But what they said, they will allow final decision for the chief mourner, the president being the national leader. They said the loss of the former president is beyond Daura. It's not only for the family and for Daura, it's a national loss. So it's for the father of the nation to decide. So we we'll wait and see if there will be a change in that, because that was the position of the family and the emirate, that is the approval of the imam, the chief imam of Daura, is pending the affirmation or substitution by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Bola Tinubu, who is also being expected in the venue here, the Daura helipad, where he will join mourners in the funeral prayers, which is the last respect for any late Muslim deceased Muslim, after all the funeral rituals, which we are told have been conducted right in the hospital in London. So the remaining thing is the prayers, and as the military tradition provides, there was a special parade in his honor at the Umar Musa Adwa International Airport, through which the remains were brought into the country. So that is a military tradition, and being a national state funeral in honor of a national leader. But as per religious rites, is a funeral prayer and interment, which is to be carried out soon after the demise of any Muslim. So being he died, he passed on at a distant world. He'll be buried almost 48 hours after that. So everybody here is waiting for this last rite to be performed on this leader who many Nigerians, not only people of Daura, see and described as one of the finest leaders or individuals the nation had ever produced in terms of integrity, honesty, and zero tolerance for corruption. Some even citing how simple his life was, the residence he lived, and the lifestyle he also adopted before, during, and even after his stay in the presidential villa.
All right, reports, live shots from Daura right now as we await the arrival of the president and the motorcade carrying the remains of former head of state, Muhammadu Buhari. Many thanks to colleagues over there, commentaries from Abdullah Mustafa as well, telling us about the ambience in Daura and the air of, sober reflection being exhibited by the people, and the imams as well have arrived to orchestrate the process. We're also expecting some members of the diplomatic corps, friends of Nigeria, who are also attending this event. We will be bringing you live shots of this as we reflect on the life and times of President Muhammadu Buhari, former head of state, former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I said before you came in, Dr. Kinshiju, about what we have lost in terms of the experience in quelling, things like insurgency, public disturbances in his career as military governor in Northeast as well in Borno, and then of course the military commander managing funds as Federal Commissioner of Petroleum and Natural Resources, as chairman of the PTF Petroleum Trust Fund, and of course two-time leader, first as military head of state and two times as civilian head of state as well. That is a whole lot of experience that we have just lost.
Huge, well, a man, who will define himself by the scope of responsibility he takes on, in his lifetime. I think what precisely drove the Muhammadu Buhari personnel was his patriotism, his nationalism. We've had people occupied different offices, different areas of responsibilities. They either come short or are not exactly at par with expectations. But what you are profiling is historical references, of a man who had this opportunity like other people had such opportunities. And stepped into those opportunities, filled the roles he was supposed to play with a sense of commitment, a sense of history, a sense of nationalism, a sense of patriotism, and most importantly, with an attitude of frugality. Understanding the fact that the Nigeria in growth at that time was also a Nigerian that lacked resources, and therefore resources needed to be properly managed. So, and of course, even in its military pursuit, especially, and I want to use that pursuit deliberately because I find it as the right word to describe is the way he pursued, the Chadian forces into Chad at that time. And it became something like a folklore, to a larger percentage of Nigerians that were following issues then. But again, you also realize that breaking military protocol, as it were, was also driven by a sense of nationalism, and it can be interpreted in the day-to-day commonplace terminology. Who are these people to come invade Nigeria? And that than just resist them and push them to the border was not enough. It was also necessary to show that this is Nigeria, and don't just dare come trespass on us. So when an individual is driven by such passion, the passion of sovereignty, the image, when you constantly carry the image of a sovereign nation in your mind, and that will make me to also quickly respond, to what my colleague on the far right, I can't get the name now, was talking about.
Dr. Sanusi.
Sorry, Dr. Sanusi was referencing about his refusal, and I want to use that word, refusal, to write a book or a memoir as had become the ways of big men, in recent times. He said in an interview that he holds very strong positions about life and about relationships, and that if he had to write a book out of a need to be forthright, he would have to write about so many people. And that his opinion about these people, when their children start reading, that they will not have good opinion about their parents, as it were. And that it was better for him to just leave that bit of expectation, that he was not going to write those books, and write the book, especially in respect, of the opinions, perception of whatever that latter generation would have about this current generation, or the generation he grew with. And I think that defines, in truth, the kind of person the late former president was. He actually had clear perspective about what existence and, of course, leadership was all about. He had clear views about how people should relate in office, And for him, office was just get into office, understood the callings and the references desired, the mandates desired from that office, deliver on them. If we also, of course, transport ourselves back to the fact that it was the person behind the second Port Harcourt refinery, when he was military minister of petroleum resources. And that many years, I think 75, 76, many years after, he now had to, of course, contend with the need to resuscitate, rebuild, rehabilitate, as the case may be, the Port Harcourt resources. And so much money, was budgeted, allocated for that rehabilitation. You can only imagine, I think 1 month ago, when it became rife in the public space, that certain individuals in that responsible for the re-engineering of the Port Harcourt refineries had actually, diverted huge funds that were deployed for that purpose. You can only put your mind in the mind of Buhari, who was still living there, to understand the kind of pains he would have also gone through, trying to understand and comprehend what exactly was the problem and challenges of Nigerians. So I'm just trying to do that comparison for us to understand the kind of pains this Muhammadu Buhari would have gone through. Doing all those things, it would appear that we can't even get people to model themselves around Muhammadu Buhari, who was governor of Borno State, who was Minister of Petroleum Resources, who was chairman of PTF, who was president, who was head of state of Nigeria, who also later became, the president of democratically elected president of Nigeria. What exactly is the issue? If we start to, of course, contrast ourselves to that Buhari benchmark, perhaps we'll start evolving a new model, in leadership in Nigeria. Whatever may be the opinions, perception of certain people in certain quarters, especially regarding his time in office, 2015 to 2023. The truth is that when those 8 years are properly contextualized, we will first say clearly the Buhari's personnel, the Buhari's values, because if we had not had a Buhari in government between 2015 and 2017, perhaps we would have the recession the country went through would have been more elongated, and of course more Nigerians, would have suffered more, but by his own selflessness. He was giving up so much that were supposed to be his as the occupier of the presidency. And given the tradition, don't let me say tradition, given the practice of politicians when they are in office, there are certain things, there are certain privileges that the politician determines that it belongs to him, even if they are not so denoted or so profiled in the Nigerian Constitution. So there are, of course, privileges in the environment that the head of government usually, abuse. But we had a president at that time who refused to abuse his office, who was focused enough, disciplined enough to determine the process of us exiting that first recession, we had, that was driven principally because we were not generating enough revenue from sales of crude oil. Wow. And we survived that. 2 years after we were growing, we were on a growth trajectory. For us to now get into the COVID-19. And that, of course, affected countries around the world, including the countries of the G7. Now, while countries of the G7 were declaring, inflation that they had not experienced in 40 years, in 60 years. We had our own possibility of going into recession, but faster than many other countries in the G7. We exited, that recession. And I don't see most Nigerians, applauding late President Buhari for that. And again, it is also as a result of the force of character.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kishuju. We'll come back to you, Doctor, very quickly. Senator Itayanan has been waiting in Uyo for a while. We tried to get him earlier. Senator, we need you to, just make your intervention because I know you will be tired having tried to link us up for a while. I tried to say maybe she should show us the panel of your phone to see where the unmute is. Perhaps it's written in a BBO, but are you on now, sir? If we can get Senator Itayanan to come up. Okay, if we reconnect with him, we will come back, we'll go back to Senator Itayanan. He's been trying to get through via Zoom. I understand he had some problems with his connection. Doctor, let me let you land before I
just land now. So, back to the text of your question that has to do with what we have lost. I described President Buhari as a comet, he came and the Nigerians' whole comet had fallen. Not many people will experience this kind of personnel again in a lifetime. And I'm saying that's the truth. Not many people will experience such person because when we start, of course, to track his person, his time in office, you will not find many people that compares with him. So, to a large extent, I think we need now, of course, to go back to literature, to start compiling those who had written books about him, you know, and start understanding by building a profile, you know, a true profile from this different point of view and perspective, you know, of Muhammadu Buhari, without the emotions, especially of the limitations, of course, of the last of the years between 2015 and 2023.
All right, Mr. Fifa, and very, you know, as we move towards when the remains will arrive, Daura, we saw a lot of, you know, some of his members of his close associates. He seemed to be someone who is loyal to friendships, especially the ones he made earlier in his career, even in some of his appointments and all. But perhaps not all, you know, have the same kind.